Hello and welcome to Ricky's Reviews Retro with your host the Undertaker, and this is the absolute first real review that we're going to do in this show, since the intro was a little bit different and just showcased a little bit of what's going to happen. But anyhow, this is going to focus on the game Okamiden, or I'm not entirely sure if that's how it's supposed to be pronounced, but that's how I'm going to do it. So Okamiden, what is this? Well, basically, a couple of years ago, 2006 to be precise, a game called Okami was released for the PlayStation 2, which was, in most views, a clone, or at least that's how it looked like in the beginning, of the adventure genre's giant from Nintendo by the Zelda games. However, Okami featured a couple of things that actually did make it a little bit different, especially the Japanese culture and the drawing techniques, which in my opinion didn't work well at all, since the dual analog sticks and the time limits are a little bit of a pain in the ass to work with. Anyhow, the game itself was pretty cool, very big, and had a lot of fun ideas, creative puzzling and stuff like that, had a focus in it which was really good. So Okami then follows up on this concept, so to speak, and since Okami then is released 5 years later, 2011, a couple of things have happened, especially the jump over to the DS format instead. And so Okami then takes place in story-wise later than the Okami game, and it doesn't have a real main story to begin with. You are thrown into this as a puppy of the first wolf in the Okami game, and you also encounter a lot of characters from the first game and their sons or daughters or children overall, which in this case brings you to an open world adventure, which eventually becomes a little bit of a main plot, which is a really good way to put this main plot going, in my opinion, and it also leaves you to experience the gameplay features and also like this open world concept, which is basically what these games have in focus. I mean, if you play a Zelda game, which is the equivalent on the Nintendo, Okami and Okamiden, and also Zelda, then all of them have a main story, a theme, a world that is really well explained, but they give you the option to actually play the game. Like, the playing media comes forward really well in this type of game. So the story is well developed, in my opinion, and it also features a little bit of a double story, since after you complete the game there is actually a game to play where the world is open for you to re-explore and also open up new areas, which gives you a little bit of a new main plot, which might in some views be the actual main plot, and gives you a little bit more challenge too, because then the game gets a lot harder. So gameplay wise, since the drop over to the DS changes up things quite a lot, I'd say. So what is Okami and Okamiden about? Well, it's about drawing stuff, but this is very easily explained. So if you look at it like the game mechanics, it's basically puzzling and action moments combined, and the tool for you to do this is drawing. So in order to do a puzzle or to defeat an enemy, usually you freeze the time with a button and you get a time limit, and then you can draw something. And the different types of things that you can draw is things that you have explored, and these are like tutorials, so you learn how to draw different things, and it's really easy to do this, especially with the stylus. And some also say that it's easy with the Wii version, which can be discussed. Me personally have not tried that version, so it is really hard for me to explain, though the main reason why this game was not that good, in my opinion, from the start with the Okami, was that the PlayStation 2 and the drawing did not match with the dual analog sticks. However, with the DS stylus, there is a slight concern of mine that hicks up the gameplay a little bit, which is the precision, because sometimes the small art in the game is actually very hard to hit with the stylus because of the precision that might not do what you want it to do. This, however, is compensated by a little bit of a friendly gameplay. I mean, the difficulty level is usually a little bit lower than what you'd expect, so if you do things a little bit wrong, there is a little bit of a a Kickstarter for you to get going. But in the later levels, it actually gets up a little bit more hardcore, and then the frustration from the controls can be a little bit of a pain. Apart from this, you also collect a lot of things in Okamiden, and you develop your character, if you want to say so, by adding more ink and health to his tools, so to speak, which then eventually makes you do more damage to different types of enemies because of the amount of things that you can draw in a fight, and it also allows you to do more puzzles without having to refill your ink. You also collect a lot of money, which you get from fights, and this is a little bit of a miss for me because usually you don't spend your money and you get a lot of stuff in this game, which would be a little bit more fun if you actually explored it and collected things that you had use of. And the difference in the types that would have been a little bit more versatile, and maybe you could use the money to buy stuff that made the game a bit unique from time to time, which would have made this mechanic a little bit more interesting. However, it is still good that you have something that you always aim to collect, and in every single fight you can get different grades, which gives you different amounts of money, and this is also a really good incitament to actually perform well and not only just do things and get it over with, because they encourage you to actually learn how to do things well and to solve the fights and puzzles with the drawing techniques that you have in your in your toolbox, so to speak. So looking at this, the gameplay has been improved since the first game, and overall I'd say that with this open world concept, with the double stories, with the whole mechanic working, Okamiden offers an adventure game and also an action game that actually is really satisfying. And it could be a little bit short and it doesn't have the same amount of replay value, but at the same time, with the exploration and the, as I call it, repetition gameplay, the grinding, which can suit a specific type of gamer, there is a lot to do there. And well, it takes about 12 to 15 hours to finish the game anyways, so I'd say, like, seeing how it is a retro game for us now, this is actually a pretty good game length for a decent price. And seeing also how Okamiden has been a little bit forgotten, I'd say that this amount of money for this amount of game is a good buy. But we have a lot more to discuss. The graphics is one of my strong points about this game. I mean, it's just adorable to look at the way they've been drawing it and the way they take in the Japanese culture. And this was also a strong trademark for them with the first Okami game. And Okamiden takes this to a level which is really good, and they perform the same thing on the DS, which is really impressive. And also the fact that they make a cuteness level of it that I really think suits the game, because on the DS, the smaller format, a wider audience, in my opinion, gets a game where you focus a little bit more on these cuddly cute children, and the smaller version then of the wolf, Chibi, as I think they called him. I'd say that overall this is one of those games that can just get you straight into it by just looking at it, and it's fun to explore things until you realize that the repetition and the gameplay after a while becomes the same, and there ain't that much, like the collectibles and stuff that should match the graphics and the theme of the world. They don't really suit each other because mostly you don't get anything that's worth the while. But as a fan of the first game, you might think that it's a little bit better in value for you in the second game. and I must say that the culture of the whole Japanese culture thingy is actually a fresh air in a world where FPS games and also um, is the most common thing, but also like the color schemes and the ones that do things differently. Well, they also have their own niche, like Zelda, for instance. And I would compare this to Zelda because, I mean, if you look at Okamiden and then the Zelda games for the DS, they look pretty much the same. They use the same type of techniques and they control pretty much the same, and they want to do the same thing. Now, there is a bit of a low point with this game that makes it a little bit less appealing, and it is the sound, to be honest. There ain't much of sound or music that catches my interest, and that was also the case with the Okami for the PlayStation. And I know that some people might disagree with this, and it's just that it's so bland that it just does what it has to and nothing else. There ain't no catchy themes in my opinion, and usually like the matching humor in the storyline and how the characters act, it doesn't really match up with how it sounds and what they can do, and it usually feels like you could just put the game on mute and read the game and it would feel almost the same. Like a sound effect when you're actually drawing something to solve a puzzle can give you a little bit of a hint or a feel for it, but usually it does not, and this is a low point of the game, to be honest. Overall, the puzzles in the game is also really fun. I wanted to add that just because puzzles can be really annoying, but here it's self-explanatory and it almost feels like a tutorial in every step of the game, and then it gives you a little bit more. Like, for instance, like in Mega Man, it gives you a little bit of a tutorial about what to do, and then it gives you a challenge, and then it keeps repeating with this, like giving you new tools, a tutorial, and then a challenge. And this is a really well-defined way to do easy, interesting gameplay that you can interact with. So, overall, Okamiden is one of those left retro games that I would actually recommend to you to buy if you get the chance. But, is it better than the competitors? Nah. Is it better than the first game? I'd actually say so. And is it a little bit of a miss then? I mean, why isn't more people talking about it? Well, basically the game got good scores, but it didn't have that audience, I'd say. Or maybe it has a really niched audience. That is really the case here, I'd say. But either way, we need to spread the word that Okamiden is really worth it now, especially since it's been a couple of years, so the game price and the game amount that you get, they match really well now. So, overall, I'd want to set a grade on this game, and I'll set it as a strong 7. While I had a lot of fun playing it, there ain't much more to do when you're done, and basically there are a lot of things that just doesn't get you that, like, that feeling of accomplishment, and it isn't really a well-defined story, but just exploring the world and being there, doing these gameplay fun moments, the controls that actually suits it really well this time, and the way that they actually made a complete crossover to a platform that it suits. I'd say that this is one of those games that you really want to try, and if you're an action-adventure fan, it's definitely a must-have in your collection. Is it better than the Phantom Hourglass or Spirit Tracks? Nah, it doesn't have that feeling that Nintendo usually get, and it doesn't have that characteristic main character. Even though I like Chibi, it just doesn't give you that same amount of feel that you get from just controlling Link in this very unique game that, like for instance Spirit Tracks with the tracks or Phantom Hourglass with the hourglass mechanics. But the drawing in Okami is their trademark and it works pretty well. And there I would say that like there is so many things that they do with it in one single game that it's in just doing that it's fun to interact with, and a really good piece of video game that needs a little bit more attention. So in that I'd say that Okamiden is one of those last games that I really want to push a little bit for, and I had a lot of fun playing this game. So a strong 7 in this game, and I'll see you in the next retro review.